Sometimes the moment that changes everything doesn't arrive with noise. It shows up quietly, almost politely, and waits to see if anyone notices. We recognized this one because it sounded ordinary at first. Maya Reed was running a struggling startup when her family reminded her, in the calmest way possible, where she stood. This is how she remembers it. I had my laptop open on the kitchen table, invoices pulled up, payroll highlighted in yellow. The number didn't move no matter how long I stared at it. $18,000. That was all that stood between my company and missing paychecks. My phone buzzed. Dad answered on the second ring. "Hey, Maya. Everything okay? I just need a short-term loan." I said, $18,000. I can pay it back in a few weeks." There was a pause. Not a shocked one. A familiar one. Dad cleared his throat. "You're always right on the edge like this." Mom's voice came through next, soft but firm. "Struggle builds discipline. You know that," I said. "This isn't a lifestyle thing. It's payroll." My sister laughed lightly, like she was trying to help. "You always land on your feet. That's your thing." I looked at the spreadsheet again. I wouldn't ask if I had another option. Dad exhaled. "We just can't right now." That was it. No anger, no argument, just a closed door. We've heard that tone before. It isn't cruel. It's tidy. I ended the call and sat there longer than I needed to. The room was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I closed the laptop. Not because the problem was solved, but because I finally understood it. If this story stays with you, it helps to know you're not the only one listening. The next morning, Mom texted like nothing had happened. Dinner on Sunday. Avery's performing a new piece. I stared at the message while brushing my teeth, foam drying at the corner of my mouth. I didn't respond right away. I already knew how the evening would go. At dinner, Dad leaned back in his chair, smiling. "Your sister's been practicing nonstop. Real commitment." Avery waved him off. "It's nothing. Just takes focus." Mom reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "We're proud of you." I picked at my food. Dad glanced over. "How's the business thing?" "It's still standing," I said. "That's good," he replied, already turning back to Avery. "We wired the deposit for her studio yesterday. Locked in the space." Avery's eyes lit up. "I can finally stop worrying about rent." I nodded once. "That's great." Mom noticed my plate. "You're not eating." "I'm fine." Dad frowned slightly. "You know, Maya, if you'd chosen something more stable," I cut him off gently. "I did choose something. You just don't see it as an investment." The table went quiet, not tense, just still. Avery cleared her throat. "You know they worry about you." "I know," I said, and I meant it. They worried about me surviving. They invested in her becoming more. That night, back in my apartment, I opened my laptop again. Same numbers, same gap, different understanding. Some people get backed, some people get lessons, and some people get used to figuring it out alone. Lucas knocked the way he always does. 2 quick taps, then a pause. Like he's giving me time to decide if I'm ready. When I opened the door, he looked past me at the stack of mail on the counter. Unopened. He stepped inside and shut the door gently with his foot. "They didn't help you," he said. Not a question. I shook my head. "They said it wasn't a good time." He let out a breath through his nose and rubbed his hands together. Grease still stuck in the lines of his skin. "Yeah, sounds about right." We sat at the small table. I poured coffee. He didn't touch it. "I can't cover everything," he said. "But I brought something." He reached into his jacket and set an envelope down between us. Thick, worn. I stared at it. "Lucas." "No, just open it." Inside was cash. Small bills, folded too many times. 6,200. He said. I pawned part of my tool set and picked up extra shifts. My chest tightened. "Those are your tools." He shrugged once. "I kept the ones I need to work. The rest can wait." You didn't have to do this. He leaned back in his chair, eyes steady. I did. I pushed the envelope back. This isn't fair to you. He slid it toward me again. Fair left a long time ago. I looked at his hands. Red. Cracked. A small cut near his thumb. You're bleeding, I said. He glanced down. Didn't notice. We sat there quietly. The refrigerator kicked on. Somewhere outside. A car passed. This buys me time, I said finally. He nodded. That's all I was aiming for. When he stood to leave, he paused at the door. You don't owe me anything. I know, I said, but I took the envelope anyway. The envelope bought me breathing room, not relief. I paid part of payroll and called the hosting company to ask for an extension. The woman on the line sounded tired but kind. We can give you a few days, she said. After that, the system flags it. I understand. I told her. I did. 2 days later, I sat across from a man in a glass-walled office downtown. His desk was clean. Too clean. This is a bridge loan, he said, sliding the papers toward me. Short term, high interest, no flexibility. How high? I asked. He named the number without blinking. I nodded and kept my face still. You'll need to sign personally. He added, if the company misses a payment, we come to you. I read every line. Twice. Can you move the first payment back a week? I asked. He shook his head. Timelines are fixed. I signed anyway. Back home, I canceled subscriptions, sold a chair I liked, stopped buying anything that wasn't food or gas. I ate the same thing for dinner 3 nights in a row. It was fine. Lucas texted once. You good holding. I wrote back. At the office, the team worked late without complaining. One of them looked at me and said, We'll get through this. I smiled and thanked them. After they left, I stayed behind and shut down the lights one by one. The numbers still didn't work, but the doors were open. The servers were running. For now, that had to be enough. The check came in a plain envelope with my name typed slightly off-center. I sat on the floor to open it, back against the couch, shoes still on. Inside were 2 notices, one from the insurance carrier, one from the State Lottery Commission. I read them slowly, then again, just to make sure nothing shifted. $620,000, not all at once, not clean, but real. I let my head rest against the cushion and closed my eyes. My hands were shaking, so I folded them together and waited for that to stop. Later that afternoon, I called the bridge loan office. I want to pay down the balance, I said. The man sounded surprised. All of it, most of it, today. He paused, then softened. That changes things. It does. I agreed. I didn't call my parents. I didn't call Avery. I texted Lucas. I'm okay. For real this time. He replied a minute later. Good. I was worried. That night. I sat at my desk and wrote a short list. Not goals, not plans, just names. At the top was a lawyer I'd been avoiding because he charged by the hour. I dialed before I could talk myself out of it. His assistant answered and asked how soon I wanted to come in. As soon as possible, I said, and for the first time in weeks, that felt true. I met with the lawyer a few days later. The office smelled faintly of coffee and paper, the kind of sterile calm that always made me feel like I should say something important. He didn't rush me, though. He just waited until I was ready. He pushed a thick folder across the table. This is what the banks see. I opened it, feeling the weight of it. Each page a confirmation of everything I already knew. Mortgage statements, refinance notices, all marked in pale blue. He tapped a section of the file. This house has been refinanced multiple times. They're behind. Not by much, but enough. I let the words sit in the air for a moment, then turned the page. Another loan for the boat, not paid off. And this, he added, pointing to a different section, is where things get really messy. There were wire transfers, accounts routed through places I only vaguely recognized, Places Dad had mentioned in passing, like he was bragging about something I shouldn't understand. "These are offshore transfers," he said, his voice lowering. "Not illegal on their own, but irregular. This is a serious violation. They could face jail time if this is ever fully investigated." My stomach tightened, but I didn't show it. Instead, I nodded, slowly. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. I hesitated. There was no turning back now. "I'm sure," I said quietly. When I left his office, the weight of the papers still sat heavy in my bag, like a weapon I couldn't yet use. But I was ready. It wasn't just a matter of buying their debt. It wasn't about me having money. Now it was about strategy, control, and making sure I wasn't just another person waiting for a handout. I went through a distressed debt fund, not a bank, not a direct loan. I didn't want them to know I was behind it. I needed them to keep thinking everything was out of their control. The fund bought the mortgage position, not the whole house, just the loan. They weren't signing papers with me, but with an entity that had no name on it. It was easier this way. The paperwork was clean. The names were different. The game had changed, and they wouldn't even know until it was too late. A few days after I set things up, the paperwork came through. They'd signed the sale and leaseback agreement without realizing it was a trap. They thought they were just getting money to keep things afloat. They didn't know that I was already holding the cards. They signed away their home, their pride, their illusion of control, and I was the one holding the keys. That night, I sat at my desk and stared at the numbers. The contract wasn't flashy, but it was airtight. My parents were legally bound now, and I had all the power to push them where I needed. I hadn't even had to be in the room. The morning I showed up at their house, the air was heavy. I could feel the weight of it before I even knocked. I hadn't told them I was coming, but I knew they'd be there. They always were, waiting for some sign of things getting better. Dad opened the door, and I didn't say anything at first. I just stepped inside. "I need to talk to you," I said, looking at him, at the house, at everything that felt like it was crumbling. Mom was in the kitchen, drying a plate. She didn't turn around, but I could feel her tension. "I've made some decisions," I continued. "I've arranged everything for the house." Dad looked at me, his face unreadable. "What do you mean?" "Arranged, I bought the mortgage position," I said. "It's in my name now." There was silence, not the angry kind. Just silence. "You're telling me you've taken our home." Dad's voice shook, just a little, but his pride still held. I didn't answer. I just let the words hang there, like a weight between us. "I don't want to do this," I said softly. "But I need you to leave." His eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out the quiet surrender agreement. "You have a choice. You can leave in peace, and I'll keep the IRS report to myself. Or you can stay and face everything." His face twisted. "You're threatening us. I'm offering a way out," I said, keeping my voice steady. It wasn't about revenge. It was about drawing a line they couldn't ignore anymore. And just like that, I could feel them starting to crumble. I didn't hear from them right away. I knew they'd process everything in their own time, probably pretend it didn't matter, act like nothing had changed. But I could tell. They knew. I sat in my apartment, the place I'd made my own, with the cash Lucas had given me now safely set aside. His sacrifice had meant something more than just money. It had meant trust. It had meant that I wasn't alone, even when everyone else turned away. I sent him a text, "We're done." When he showed up at my shop a few weeks later, it was different. Not the same desperation I'd seen before, but something more. He looked around, hands on his hips, pride in his eyes. "I didn't think you'd actually pull it off," he said, "but this looks like something real." I smiled. "It is. As for Avery, she didn't get the support she thought she would. The moment my parents had to cut her off, she stopped calling. The house, their wealth, their story of success. It was all gone. But I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindictive. I just felt like I could finally breathe again. Like I wasn't tied to a past I never asked for. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had built something for myself.